The ballroom of the Grand Aurora Hotel in downtown Chicago glowed with crystal lights and quiet elegance. Chandeliers shimmered above long tables where influential guests spoke softly about donations, foundations, and future plans. At the center of it all stood Mrs. Eleanor Hayes, a well-known millionaire philanthropist, dressed in a graceful silver gown. To the world, she looked strong and composed. Inside, she felt empty. It had been 3 years since her son, Lucas, disappeared. He was only 7 when he vanished during a crowded street festival. The case had shaken the city. His smiling face had appeared on billboards, television screens, and social media feeds for months. Despite massive searches and endless investigations, there had been no answers. Over time, the city moved on, but Eleanor never did. Every night, she replayed his laugh in her mind. Every morning, she woke up hoping for a miracle. Tonight's charity gala was meant to raise funds for missing children, a cause painfully close to her heart. As Eleanor stepped up to the podium, the room fell silent. She spoke about hope, about never giving up, about believing that love could cross any distance. Her voice was calm, but her hands trembled slightly. When the applause ended, she forced a smile and stepped away, feeling the familiar weight in her chest. Needing air, Eleanor slipped outside onto the wide stone terrace. The city lights stretched endlessly, cars moving like quiet streams below. She closed her eyes, letting the cool night breeze brush her face. That was when she heard a soft, hesitant voice behind her. "Ma'am, excuse me." Eleanor turned. A teenage girl stood a few steps away, thin and nervous, wearing a simple hoodie and worn shoes. Her dark eyes held something heavy, fear mixed with determination. "Yes?" Eleanor asked gently. The girl swallowed hard. I saw the picture inside. The missing child." She hesitated, clutching her hands together. "Ma'am, I know that missing child." The words hit Eleanor like a sudden storm. Her breath caught. For a moment, she couldn't speak. Many people over the years had claimed to have seen Lucas. Most were mistakes, some were cruel lies. Still, something about this girl felt different, too sincere, too scared to be pretending. "What do you mean?" Eleanor asked, her voice barely steady. I think his name is Lucas," the girl said quietly. "I saw him a few months ago. At a small shelter near a highway in Ohio. He was helping an older woman serve food." Eleanor's heart began to race. "Are you sure?" she whispered. The girl nodded quickly. "He has a small scar near his eyebrow. And he draws the same star shape over and over. He called another woman Mom, but I don't think she was his real mother." Eleanor felt her legs weaken. She reached for the railing to steady herself, tears blurring the city lights. Details like the scar, details only a true witness would know, shattered the walls she had built around her hope. "Why didn't you say anything before?" Eleanor asked, tears slipping down her cheeks. The girl looked down. "I was scared. I didn't think anyone would listen." Then she looked up again. "But tonight, I saw his face. And I couldn't stay silent." In that quiet moment under the Chicago sky, Eleanor realized something had changed. For the first time in 3 long years, hope wasn't just a memory, it was alive. Eleanor Hayes could no longer hold herself together. The moment the girl finished speaking, the strength she had carried for 3 long years finally gave way. She covered her face, her shoulders shaking as silent tears turned into deep, uncontrollable sobs. This was not the polished woman the world admired, not the billionaire philanthropist on magazine covers. This was simply a mother whose heart had been cracked open by hope. "I believed he was gone," Eleanor whispered through tears. "Every night, I told myself to be strong. But I never stopped waiting." The girl stepped closer, unsure, then gently placed a hand on Eleanor's arm. "He's alive, ma'am. I know it," she said with quiet certainty. "He smiled when he talked about his drawings. He still draws stars." Eleanor looked up sharply. Lucas had always drawn stars. On walls, notebooks, even napkins at restaurants. It was his way of saying he wanted to be an astronaut someday. Hearing that detail felt like hearing his voice again. "Tell me everything," Eleanor said, holding the girl's hands tightly, afraid the truth might disappear if she let go. They sat on a stone bench beneath the terrace lights as the city buzzed in the distance. The girl introduced herself as Mia. She explained that she had been traveling with her aunt when they stopped at a small roadside shelter near the Ohio border. There, she noticed a boy who seemed different, quiet, polite, always watching the road. An older woman claimed he was her son, but Mia sensed something was wrong. The boy never talked about his past, never mentioned school, and sometimes stared at passing cars as if searching for someone. He asked me once, Mia said softly, if people ever stop looking for someone they love. Eleanor pressed a hand to her chest, fighting another wave of tears. I never stopped, she said firmly. Not for a single day. Without wasting time, Eleanor called her head of security and legal team. Her voice was calm now, focused, fueled by determination. She gave clear instructions, discreet searches, coordination with local authorities, and immediate travel arrangements. But even as plans moved into action, she refused to leave Mia's side. You did the bravest thing, Eleanor told her. You spoke up when it mattered. Mia shrugged slightly. I just didn't want him to be forgotten. In the following days, Eleanor barely slept. Helicopters, investigators, and social workers followed every detail Mia had provided. When the shelter was finally located, the truth slowly unfolded. The woman caring for Lucas had not harmed him, but she had taken him during the chaos of the festival, believing she could give him a better life. It was wrong, but the boy was alive, safe, and still holding on to fragments of his past. Eleanor insisted on going herself. Standing at the doorway of the shelter, her heart pounded so loudly she thought it might give her away. Inside, a boy looked up from his drawings. His eyes widened. Mom, he whispered, unsure but hopeful. Eleanor dropped to her knees, tears streaming freely as she opened her arms. In that moment, nothing else mattered. Not wealth, not status, only love, and the courage of a girl who refused to stay silent. The room seemed to disappear as Eleanor wrapped her arms around Lucas. For a second, he hesitated, as if afraid the moment might vanish. Then he held her tightly, burying his face in her shoulder. Eleanor closed her eyes, breathing in the familiar scent of her child, grounding herself in the truth she had waited years to feel. He was real. He was here. I didn't forget you, Lucas whispered softly. I tried to remember your face every day. Eleanor's heart ached, but she smiled through her tears. I never stopped looking for you, she said. Not even once. The social workers allowed them time together, watching quietly from a distance. The woman who had taken Lucas stood near the doorway, her eyes full of regret. She explained that loneliness and loss had driven her to make a terrible choice. Eleanor listened without anger. Her focus remained on her son, on the fragile miracle of his return. The days that followed were filled with careful steps. Therapists helped Lucas adjust, reminding everyone that healing takes time. Eleanor moved slowly, letting him set the pace. Short walks, quiet conversations, evenings filled with drawing. One night, Lucas handed her a piece of paper. On it was a star, carefully drawn, brighter than all the others. This one is you, he said. Eleanor hugged him gently, understanding how deeply children speak through simple things. When they returned to Chicago, the city welcomed them with kindness, but Eleanor kept life private. She turned her home into a place of warmth and safety, filled with laughter instead of silence. Lucas returned to school with support, rediscovering pieces of a childhood that had been paused but not destroyed. Eleanor did not forget Mia. She invited the girl and her family to dinner, not as a benefactor, but as someone deeply grateful. Mia sat nervously at the long table, surprised when Eleanor took her hand. You gave me my son back, Eleanor said. That makes you family. Mia's eyes filled with tears. She had never imagined her small act of courage would change so many lives. Eleanor arranged for Mia's education, not as charity, but as belief in a girl who chose honesty over fear. Months later, Eleanor stood on a stage once again, but this time she was not alone. Lucas stood beside her, holding her hand. She spoke about hope, about listening to quiet voices, and about how courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers the truth when silence feels safer. In the audience, Mia watched, smiling. That night, as Eleanor tucked Lucas into bed, he looked up at her. Do stars really help people find their way? He asked. Eleanor kissed his forehead. Yes, she said softly. They remind us where home is. And under the quiet Chicago sky, 3 lives, once broken, now shone together, guided by truth, kindness, and a courage that refused to stay silent.